Thanks, Ron.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, thank you.
So, no, being a veteran, I'm fully out of the military. I got out in 2012 in August, and I had married my high school sweetheart. We were 18 and 20. I think it was on my second deployment. We got married, and then like 5-6 days later, I got deployed. That was in 2009, and then I did a rim pack in 2010, and then a really long West pack in 2011. And I had already been around the world. It was a great experience, but my wife and I were kind of disconnected, and so, military is not family friendly, and my wife and I, we had this decision, like, okay, we can we saved like $30,000 in the 5 years I was out, 5 years I was gone, and I said we can use that to put a down payment on a house, or we can invest it in our marriage. And we bought we bought 2 tickets to Amsterdam, and then 10 weeks later we flew out of Madrid. And so I wrote out my business plan. My wife and I were hanging out, falling back in love. We were 22, 23 years old.
Damn, so young.
Yeah. And this was in the world where you couldn't just screen time, FaceTime that. It was just like you were off the grid.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wrote up my business plan, and I came back, used my 3 months of unemployment, and by God's grace was able to make $100,000 in sales my first year. And I learned that I had a niche for business. Not everyone has it.
Yeah.
But I was in the right place at the right time. And then about a year later from when I started the company, Teavana was bought out by Starbucks, and then tea was hot,
Yeah. Literally, no pun intended, right?
Yeah.
Tea is hot. Or cold, what we're having right now, right?
Yeah.
So what is the time frame we're looking at here? This is 2009, you said?
No, it was 2012.
Oh, 2012. So this is the inception of the company. You had taken, your earnings, I guess, from the military?
Yeah.
And you invested it into what we see here now, right? ZEN'S.
So I'm a big risk taker. I had about $30,000, and I spent $16,000 on the trip to Europe, and then I wasted down another $20,000. I had less than $10,000 living off of, and I used my 3 months of unemployment, which was about $5,000 at the time, and I used that to fund the company.
Nice. So yeah. What I guess I don't know monetarily. How much was it that you put into the company besides what you had used for the investment for your?
Yeah. So I bought 15 pounds of tea, and I started selling to my friends and family. Then after doing that for Thanksgiving and Christmas, I was able to get some wholesale orders because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just selling out of my backpack.
Yeah.
And
so you're telling me you could run a tea company out of your backpack?
I mean, you can.
No, I know. I think the message we also in the podcast too is I want people to understand, like, what we're saying right now is absolutely something doable by any man, any woman, whatever, right? Like, this is kind of how you did it. Now, how someone else does it, we have no bearing on that.
Yeah, it was very humble beginnings.
Yeah.
Very humble.
I think everyone starts like that, right? Like, it just...
Yeah, most companies don't start off with a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And if they do start off with anything, it's usually connections, industry insight, opportunities. One of the things that I had going for me is being in Southern California, where farmers markets were running, 7 days a week.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're so oblivious to that notion is that we can do business here compared to any other state or whatever, right? Like it's sunny here most of the time. It's not. Yeah, the opportunity is there. Now, whether people take advantage of that opportunity, that's really on them.
I mean,
right?
Ben and Jerry's was in the East Coast. It was cold.
Yeah.
Starbucks found it in Washington, Seattle area. There's a lot of companies that, most companies that grow big, they weren't just at the right place at the right time. They found a niche and they slowly convert it into an ideal position. And then from there they scaled and grew because they had made a lot of mistakes in the beginning.
Oh yeah.
And so I had made a lot of mistakes in business, and being a big risk taker, I've learned to be more calculated in my risk taking.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and it took time, right? Like there was, there's not a school in this, right? There's not a specific school in this. I know we could say it's business, but it doesn't take a business degree to do a business, right? Like it just takes sheer will.
You know what I've learned though? The most successful people in business typically have family members that are in business.
Yeah.
They're taught this inherent discipline of taking risks. This idealistic, I'm going to put my money down and make something happen. That's not something that people just naturally grow into. That's something that has to be emulated.
Mm-hmm.
And your family, minority or immigrants, my family, I'm second generation Mexican American, and that people who come from third world countries, poor areas where jobs aren't just handed, ingenuity is taught, where you're making something, you're providing value, or you're doing a service that's filling a niche or improving upon some product or service.
Mm-hmm.
And you typically don't find that in first world countries. I mean, you think you do because of all these tech companies, and tech companies are great, but tech companies are far and few between. The tech industry is relatively new compared to medical, food, agriculture, clothing. Those services, there are new businesses being developed all the time because someone's found a niche and the industry changes or trends change. And I think that really set the tone for me, because my family, my dad specifically taught me that if you want to do well, you got to take risks.
The sayings, right? Like no risk, no reward kind of thing, right? It's just and like you said it like earlier, when you're younger, right? Like you can, and I always use this as an analogy or as an experience thing, because when you're young, right? If you remember when you were young, I do, and I used to remembering not caring, right?
What age is young?
I mean, like kids, like when you were a kid, like grade school or something, right?
Like fourth grade or eighth grade, or
I would say
grade.
like, I don't know, like in grade school, right? So I don't know, 12 years old or under 12 or something,
12 years old.
And you didn't know, because you didn't know everything, right? You're like, I'm gonna take the risk. I'm gonna make the jump and do stuff that are, that I would be normally afraid of. But now, it's like, now you go into school and they start teaching you all these things. You start learning these, like what you shouldn't do, right? And you get into school and into college, and it kind of, you feel this limitation part. And then once you get to a certain point, you get to like, oh man, like you go back to as a kid again. You're like, I don't fear this shit anymore or whatever, right? So you kind of, you go through this cycle of like when you're a kid, and then you get to this title, like, hey man, you got to do this school and this is what you're set to be. And it's like, no, you don't have to. You can do whatever you want, man. Like you're not, no one's expectation other than yourself, putting yourself out there. You judge that. You judge your success. You judge everything that you do, and happy with your decision, and don't care about what.
That wasn't really my forte. That's not who I was. So I'm not very good at listening, and I'm not a very good test taker. And so in school, I was taught that I'm not very smart. And my parents, my mom specifically, because my dad was like, whatever, school. My mom wanted me to be in all honors classes, and I had no business being in honors classes. And she thought, well, if you were around smart kids, you'll do better in life, and that's just not true. If I look back, and I have friends who are college professors, I have friends who are police officers. The ones that are doing the best, the hustlers, the ones that are working really hard, that didn't really care. They checked in, checked out. They were okay with getting B's and C's. And that was kind of me, man. There was a time, it was during one of those California protests, I literally got on top of the table and said, "Let's get out of here." I did that because everyone was saying, "Yeah, well, let's rebel. We believe in X, Y, and Z." I didn't even know what we were doing. But that tenacity goes way farther. There's only so many people who are going to stand up in grade school at 12 years old. Will speak publicly or challenge what the teacher says, and when it's not popular. Those are the outliers. Those are the difference makers, and those are the ones that are not going to settle with mediocrity. And if you look at the people who are A students, top grads, they do well, but they only do as well as the ladder allows them to. You and myself, we challenge the status quo. We challenge the system. We challenge the ladder. We build our own system.
And you don't have to let a grade dictate like what the outcome is, right? Like, and that's one thing. Like people, and it's good either way. However you go, right? Whether you think you're made for it or not, right? School or not. I just think not, in thinking back, I'm like, maybe I should have invested my money into myself instead of school or whatever. But I mean, like I said, there's no bad decision, right? Whether I chose the right decision or not, I'm still here, right? I'm still here, so it don't matter, right? Like what the society had thought about.
I mean, I have a lot of friends who've chose drugs and prostitutes, and I was like, there's some pretty bad decisions.
No, for sure.
Why are you gonna leave your wife and kids for that?
But it doesn't mean that it could always, it doesn't have to remain that way, right? There's room for change, and
redemption.
Yeah, you can do that. People need to feel it sometimes to be like, I think I need to change, right? And some people need. It's like when you're a kid, you touch that plug, you're like, I'm gonna do that again, right? Like put a fork in it or whatever, and you don't feel it until like maybe a third or fourth, like man, like that actually electrocuted me or whatever.
Some people learn through pain and suffering. I would say most people learn through pain and suffering. And in business, if you want to be successful, you got to learn from other people's mistakes, because you can only go in the negative so many times. You can only have so many bounce checks until you got to either get with the program, figure it out. Especially if you're growing in business. This is more business in the business world. There's a certain skill level required to have your first little launch where you're selling from your backpack. There's another level when you now have your own store, and that's a different level. It's another level when you have multiple stores, which I've experienced that. And
that's why I wanted to talk to you too about that, because that's my fascination. It's the same, however we look at a business or not. I know it's totally two separate things, but how you did your business we are very similar, right? Like starting at the farmer's market, I didn't sell it. Well, whatever you want to say, sell out of the backpack. I sold stuff. Like it wasn't out of my backpack. It was just selling what I made, right, to friends and family or whatever. But getting a store, warehouse, and then the business side of things is where, man, I'm not a business person. I'm not, like, I'm the just doer guy, and I don't.
You gotta wear different hats.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's absolutely true, right? Like, as the owner or whatever, you have to be able to do all of it.
There's a book called The E-Myth. Have you read it?
No.
It's a book worth reading. It's free on YouTube summary. You can watch it. But this idea that there are three types of personalities, people that you need in business. You need the technician. That's the person who makes the coffee, makes the tea, turns the wrench, provides the product or the service. And then there's the manager, who is the one that deals with the technicians, deals with employees and customers, public relations, arguably even marketing, managing what you built, the branding. Then there's the entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur is the one that everyone pays the most attention to, but it's actually the smallest role in running a company. It's not easy. Anyone could write up an idea and come up with a concept. It's far more complex to turn that into reality.
Yeah, the execution of it. Yeah.
And this is why a lot of people prefer to buy a business than to build a business from the ground up. The MBA grads will buy a business. The person who's got the degree or no college degree in like art or basket weaving, they're going to be the ones that actually build the company, as opposed to the MBA business business school grad. Different personalities, different temperaments. They're going to build it based off of what they learned. And so, I was saying, if you emulate what your family taught you, that's going to largely impact how you build your business, the culture, the reasons behind it, the mission statement, the vision, and even the style in which you scale and grow. So I'm a huge risk taker, huge risk taker. There's very few people I know who take as big of risks as I have. I just don't, I mean, I hear about it, I just don't meet them very often. And it doesn't mean just starting a business. I mean, like, fighting the employment development department, fighting the IRS, challenging the public health department during COVID, even going against the odds is something that I find very invigorating. And I'm able to do that in business. Not a lot of people want to do that. I learned that from my family because my family they're fighters. Yeah. Everyone in my family is a fighter.
Well, I think you put it, in the beginning, right, as a minority in this country, right? Like you kind of know what, back home, like what they have to fight versus what we have to fight.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
This shit is easy. Like here, to navigate through here, I mean, really, it's not that hard. Like, let's face it. Look how sunny it is outside right now.
We got roads.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Exactly. We
got
have
roads.
all the resources to make whatever we want here. So, like, we're kind of pampered. So it's not hard. It's only what you think is hard. And yeah, it's okay to say that it's easy. Yeah.
Well, so I don't really take hot showers. I rarely do. Mm-hmm. And part of it was I was in the military. I was in the Middle East for like 4 summers. 3 summers. So I just got used to never turning on the hot water, and it just kind of makes you hungry, makes you ready, does something to you mentally.
Well, yeah, I think it's a mental part, and I do the same thing. I take these, cold showers. Like, I think, if you don't, it's a callous in your mind. Like, no, I control this shit. Like, I control what my destiny is and how that is, and that's how I do it with, controlling to take these cold showers. Even if I don't, like, why should I? I'm like,